Greetings once again, everybody. We're back around the table for another episode here, and we have something new at the table.
A special guest.
An extra set of hands.
Oh my god.
I'm Morgan.
I have 4 hands tonight, just for the record, and 2 voices.
Creepy.
Yeah,
That's
we're going that way.
Nuclear power plant's a little closer.
We're an unholy abomination of biological science.
The multiple personalities have manifested, and we're just going to run with it.
There's a gun off camera. We aren't meaning to do this.
On that note, what's everyone rocking tonight?
Well, today I was carrying my Fear Noble Chaparral.
Yay. That's a
Very
pretty
nice.
knife.
It's such a pretty little knife.
I blame you
love
for
that
making
guy.
me love that, by the way.
Don't blame me. Blame your Fear Noble.
Yeah,
Okay,
go on.
we'll blame
such
both
pretty-
of you.
Oh, that's fair. But yeah, if he didn't make such pretty scales, I wouldn't have loved it so much, and then I wouldn't have made you love it either. So
Go on Fear Noble's Instagram page and just check out all the beautiful things that man
gorgeous
makes.
The
things.
guitars.
Do I have to
Yeah.
look more things?
Yes,
Oh
you
yeah,
do.
you do.
Yep.
You do.
You don't get a choice.
Well, it was a couple weeks ago that Paul pulled it out, and I figured I'd pull out the mini version. I'm rocking the mini HK tonight. It's the D2 American made in Benchmade factory. Coffin handle, loves it. I absolutely loves it. It's my little tiny tanks, and I like tiny tanks. Yeah.
I love that coffin style handle.
Yep.
Morgan, what are you rocking tonight, man?
Well, Grim's no Rask.
Oh, it steps up
fancy
a
on
notch.
Yes! Mic drop!
Boom!
Morgan likes to play with fancy toys.
I am not a wealthy man anymore.
Oh,
The nicest drop I've ever played with in my entire life.
yeah.
And this is going to come
Yeah.
into play for this episode. The
It
country
will.
of origin. For you guys who are familiar, this is a Canadian-made blade.
Yay,
Which-
Canada!
It's
Oh,
just,
Canada.
And Joseph.
well, for today, back to the Gale Bradley with M4.
Excellent.
And just overall awesomeness.
Rusty Factor? I heard there was a Rusty Factor. It
Yeah.
looks like you got most of that cleaned up.
I did. I am a very caustic human being. And like I said in the last video, I did rust the flat of this blade. But you know what? Hot soapy water and steel wool, and it completely cleaned off. No harm, no foul, aside from having rusted it in the first place. But you know what? I'm loving the edge tension. It's a sweet knife.
And it's M4, right?
Yep.
Tool steel. It's
Oh,
not
oh my
a stainless,
goodness.
so.
No.
It is such a high-performing knife. Yeah.
That's it.
No, I'm so happy I got this.
And yeah, I'm rocking the Anthem again because. Are you
Again.
kidding me?
Jeez, come on.
Yeah,
How could you keep that
How
out of
dare
you?
I keep that in my pocket for more than a day at a
7
time?
days.
What are you, in
you
love?
waited.
A little bit.
Disgusting.
What can I say?
Yeah, all right, take
This
it.
is actually
A little bit of
story
nano oil
between
inside
a
of
man
this, and
his
oh, it's just so nice.
We're going to have a video on how you like 20 CV compared to M390, if you can
Yes.
tell. But
Indeed.
we'll have that video coming up.
Mhm.
All right.
Which
well,
country of origin do we want to start with?
Well, I don't know if it's a country of origin thing, but just what the topic's about tonight is does the country of origin actually matter for the maker and the knife makers? And people are very caught up sometimes on what countries are acceptable with products. And
Now, keeping politics out of the discussion, I think we're all on the same page, and I think we all agree, country of origin doesn't necessarily matter. It's an indication of what's possible, but there's some good stuff out of places like China, there's some bad stuff out of places like the States.
It's also a question of era. There are definitely swings in
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
over the course of
But I
knife
think
history.
what time period
Yeah.
we're having this conversation? Yeah, definitely.
I think we're looking at modern knife making for the most part. We have a couple traditionals kicking around at the table here. Okay, so preconceived notions. When people hear others talking about knives or products in general out of China, what comes to mind?
Well, yeah, we got the
Yeah.
brand.
We have a couple of these that are.
This sounds
is
with all
what-
of us retching.
This is what people think of: half serrations, stilettos with rainbow anodized,
Skull decos all over.
cheap no-name steel,
The gas station
Stainless
special.
steel.
no branding
Yeah.
for companies on some of these.
Stainless
Um,
China. Stainless China.
Stainless
you know
China
it's-
right there.
it's
Yeah,
quality.
those good old USA designs.
That being said,
440. This is one of the variations of
440.
yeah, when they're not telling you exactly what it is, that's never a good sign.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
almost guaranteed. It's 448 at that point. Best
more or
case
less.
scenario.
Yeah, if that's
For the
what
record,
you-
I want to say this is not actually my knife, Trevor. Thanks. You don't know that this
Sure,
knife's
sure.
in the video yet, but congratulations, you made it into the video, buddy.
Yay! Cue fanfare.
Nothing. It says absolutely nothing.
It says China.
China
Yeah.
across the side.
That is actually one of my oldest knives.
Yeah. Yeah, that lock barely engages.
You know what the worst part is too? That knife has a higher success rate on opening than my Kershaw's with Speed Safe.
Amazing.
That's
You can
kinda sad.
crack it, and then she's not bad.
Yeah, you got to put a little bit of force into the flipper. So this is the typical quality that people have come to expect from places like China and
extremely
Taiwan.
mass-produced, no thought of quality control, just pump it out there
And
sort
often,
of stuff.
and often designs ripped off of other companies.
Yeah.
I mean, American companies do this to each other all the time, but then you have stuff like, this is vaguely reminiscent of a Spyderco. Vaguely.
Yep.
Like a Spyderco sharp finger bastard child.
You know what though? This is where I learned how to Spidey drop. Like the only way I ever opened this knife when I was a kid was like that.
That's horrifying because there's no way to grip that blade aside from a tiny nail nick.
Oh,
But look how much blade there is though when you close it. There's
Oh,
so much
That's
blade.
like a from humble beginnings story, right?
It
there.
actually,
Yeah.
it
100%.
actually
That's
looks
the
like
oldest knife in my collection.
It looks like the prototypes that Spyderco had in 1976.
Oh,
when they were making it.
the one that Sal Glesser likes to bring out every now and then. in the
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah. That's what that looks like.
It might be a clone of that.
Could be.
Now, all that being said, there's some good stuff that comes out of China. And people are largely aware of this. Kershaw has been utilizing their factories out of China very, very well, so has Spyderco. But we've also got a couple of other companies out there that are producing some really nice stuff.
So, when it comes to Chinese made, we do have some Chinese made Kershaws.
Oh, yeah, Kershaw's.
Yeah, some
That isn't a
other
Kershaw.
basic Chinese stuff. Well, the Rook stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and even CRKT, the pillar, I believe, was made in China.
Probably.
Yeah, it's not Taiwan, because they used to be Taiwan quite a bit.
Chinese or Taiwan?
I
Taiwan.
can't remember
Oh,
the hey-ho
Were they? Because I can't remember what I couldn't find my box to find. But okay, Taiwan is what I was leaning to just because of the sculpted.
Because for a long time, they were nothing but Taiwan,
Oh.
but all of a sudden you saw China start to trickle in.
This guy's big, but this one's also Chinese.
Well, let's take the
Oh,
crappy
Crappy
Chinese
Chinese.
Don't
versions off.
cross-contaminate.
Yeah.
good call.
So when it comes to Chinese that might be a reliable brand, because there's definitely some fit and finish problems that you see.
On occasion, yeah.
Hmm.
In regard to this knife, I have seen some dramatic differences.
Oh yeah.
The action's pretty consistent in all the ones I've played with. I've played with about 4 of them, but the grind. I've seen everything from a chisel grind to absolute perfection. The one I have right here is, when I got it, it was the best one I'd seen. I handled 2 of them that they had in the store before I bought it.
And because this one's not an assisted, it's just a flipper,
Yeah.
I've felt grit right out of the box with this particular knife, depending on.
Did you put nano oil on
of
this?
course.
Oh my god!
This thing, why would I not?
This thing-
That thing's running on phosphor bronze washers,
You know what? That's actually incredibly smooth.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it
comments.
most certainly is phosphor. I can see it between the liners.
Seen it.
That's cool.
And then you've got their speed safe, which I kind of commented that it doesn't really matter about fit and finish. Although,
Just bull rush through
What's
this.
the glorp on that blade there?
the what now?
There's a bunch of.
Dings.
Oh, it's probably tape. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's tape.
But yeah, for speed safe. Sorry, you really don't need to worry so much about a detent or things like proper opening.
And
Yeah, there isn't a detent in the let's be
kind
honest.
of
Yeah.
impressed with how centered it is for being a speed safe. It's not 100%, but it's pretty good.
That's acceptable for the price level you would find.
Yeah,
Now,
let's
would
do-
that be
let's
because-
do a product by company comparison here for centering, speed safe to non?
Would the speed safe centering be because the
Actually,
torsion
that's
bar
better than the chill.
pushes on one side?
That's better than the chill.
What's that?
Is it because the torsion bar pushes from one side and it pushes the blade off center? Or
Maybe. It's
Essentially, but normally a frame lock is going to be a little off center because the bar is
because of detent.
constantly pushing
Yeah.
at it. And especially in a low end Chinese, you'll see that a lot. Is the lock bar actually pushes on the blade?
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
come on, there's some awesome centering there.
There's nothing wrong with that center.
There is, in fact, a center.
Wait.
The blade isn't in it.
okay. So the handles are offset horribly,
Ugh.
but the blade's actually
It's got
relatively
a
close to
double
center.
liner on one side.
It's certainly because that's where they put the spring.
Ugh.
It's gross. Anyway, we also have
Take it out
probably
of frame.
we have
Hide your shame.
Yeah, We have one of the nicest knives on the table being made in China as well. And it's a company where none of us have really had much hands-on experience until recently.
We knives? Well, Booze Blades knives.
They produce,
Designed by William Booze, made by We Knives. Mini Arrow.
Yeah.
Courtesy of my friend Tom.
It was a gorgeously well-made little piece for sure.
Carbon fiber inlays in speckle blue titanium with S35 VN with a blade sculpted very nicely so that when it's closed, that opening hole matches the seam of the handles. Like, in terms of raw machining, and like directly comparing to most knives here, knocks it all out of the park.
Maybe the best point of a compliment that we can give it is that the flipper only mildly triggered. This one here.
I don't know.
I was a little triggered. I was a little
Just a
triggered
little,
by,
though.
by the flipper.
He was more upset by it than I was, and I ended up with a blister on the tip of my finger from flipping this
This
over.
thing has a pretty strong detent, and even when my thumb's not pinning the lock bar, which I'm notorious at,
Yes.
even without, it does have a pretty strong flipper, and I can see that rubbing on the
Now, I
finger.
gotta say, I had the opportunity to handle this straight from being shipped. My friend received it in the mail, called me, and we opened it.
You geeked out.
And the detent out of the box from the factory was totally unacceptable. Like, it was draconian. It was not okay. However, he took it apart, tapped in the detent ball just a little bit, and now it's just a stiff detent.
Fair enough.
So a little bit of
It's too
modification
vicious.
out of box.
I don't
which-
mind a stiff detent, so I kind of like it.
But that being said, this is already stiffer than that knife, and
It's a smaller knife, though. It's probably got a similar
Talking about
detent.
centering, just to
yeah.
give you the point of
In all
comparison
other
there.
in all other aspects of the machining, this thing is like just golden, super well done.
Mhm.
I mean, right off of this, I can say, you know what,
Yeah.
location of manufacture, just on this example, I don't really care. If China's capable of producing something like this, political reasons aside, if you don't want to support their economy, whatever, but you can't deny that they produce really good knives.
Yeah.
Also, the
If you-
tolerances of that pivot, it's like the nesting cardboard boxes, just you
Well-
feel the gust of air come up the other side.
Even the carbon fiber here, like,
The transition.
just gorgeous.
Yeah.
The way
Transition
it's
is
transitioned.
I think we have
So-
some pictures of it disassembled that we can magic in, movie magic. It's quite pretty.
Now, we do also have up-and-coming Chinese company.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
The
specifically,
infinitely unpronounceable.
Ruick Rake.
Rake. We gotta start calling it Rake, because that's what they want us to call it, but God, it
No.
doesn't, like, Rake.
There's
I
no
say no.
A in it.
You know what? The first time we introduce it per
It's
video,
Ruick.
we will say Rake, but then from then on, we're going to call it Ruick. Because that's how it's
Yeah.
spelled. I'm sorry. Phonetically English, we're going to pronounce it in a way where people hear the word, they know how it's spelled.
And just cards on the table. I am the only one here crazy enough to buy this, other than Joseph.
Weirdos.
You know what? There's a lot of people that on my Instagram that I know that have this knife,
Oh, really?
and
It's a
I
really
don't know
nice
if they
design.
haven't watched our video, but they haven't said anything about it.
I did watch, actually, one of the guys on Instagram also has a knife channel, and he was talking about how he actually, like, extended the thumb stud out wider here,
That would
so
help.
you could get more
Like,
purchase.
They
on it.
unscrew it a little bit.
I unscrewed it and maybe put in a spacer to make it
Yeah.
wider out this
all,
way.
all that wear on the pocket, or pocket clip, yeah, on the thumb studs anodizing, that's all pain that my thumb felt. 100% of it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a brutal knife to open. But, I mean, once it's open, I still like it.
You would.
Of course I do. But, again, talking about machining and how well everything's done, I mean, you're making a transition away from titanium and Wee knives and all that, but if you look at build quality, yeah, it's stainless steel, yeah, it's 14C, but the way it's
I mean,
machined,
compared to that, I love that knife,
The
but
fact
there's
that-
no comparison there.
What did this knife cost me? Like $50?
yeah, around
Yeah,
Like
35 American, basically.
Yeah. The fact that it does that at $35
Yeah.
is insane.
I originally bought this for $22 back in like 2013, something like that.
And I still think that's a good deal for that knife.
But right now it's going for like 50 Canadian. By the way, 22 Canadian, not 22 American. That is less expensive now.
Mhm.
Blows it out of the water. No comparison. at all.
Arguably using a better steel, there's
Yeah.
more effort going into the machining.
8CR13 MOV.
No, I mean, not a bad steel as far as budget blades go.
Not at all. It's acceptable for the $22 price. Right.
No, it's a weird little guy.
Yeah. As far as other good quality stuff that comes out of China, and unfortunately this is a now no longer existent subdivision of Cass Hanway, it was one of their Rock Creek folders. And the fit and finish on this guy is so crisp, so clean, and it is a very well made little piece for sure.
That snap reminds me of a Buck 110
Hmm.
snap when you made the sound there.
And it's nice.
It's got a very nice rock solid.
Across the product line, from what I remember playing with some of their fixed blades and other products, consistently good stuff out of there.
That they were.
And this is another thing, and this is jumping a bit from folding knives to swords, but Hanwei making swords out of China at decent quality levels, if not probably top of the line as far as production is concerned. Out of China.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like more and more evidence that you can get good stuff out of China.
That you can.
Yeah.
So it leads us into other countries and what other countries are doing with stuff.
Where do we want to go around the world?
Probably Taiwan, just because of how close they are, right?
Yeah, seems like a good idea.
We could. Japan, because they've got a much older history.
Okay, yeah, let's
Okay.
talk Japanese.
So
Might as well.
when it comes to Japanese,
Are we going good or bad first from the Japanese?
I only have good things, but
I was going to say, I think for the most part we only
Yeah.
have.
I don't have anything bad.
Well-
We've got some basic from Japan, but it doesn't
Yes.
mean necessarily
So,
bad.
I have one debate.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
I forgot I brought that. Excellent. Oh, you have your delicate. Okay, well, I'll just bring in mine.
And we got to go old school.
Here's where we jump into the challenge that Nigel made me do just to make Paul jealous. Super blue Endura.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Also
such a
regular
prick.
purple Endura.
Oh,
You know what? He's feeling
I
lonely.
want
It was-
both of those.
It was conditional on me coming to bring that.
Purple is Paul's one of Paul's favorite colors, and he laments so often about how he missed out on some of the super blue ones.
Super Blue Delica specifically, but
That's Endura.
yeah.
Unfortunately for you, but still.
Yeah.
So when it comes to old, I mean, these guys here.
And sort of the bastard reference. Japanese steel on an American knife.
Yeah, we're going to throw that one, but we'll get to that one because we got a weird
yeah.
little hybrid going on. Oh, he's
Oh,
pulling
there's the
out.
pretty boy. Oh my goodness, I love that.
Now it's just a show and
Pushing
tell
back.
episode.
I'm just
Yeah.
showing off at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a wider variety of Enduras that I haven't seen outside of like collection photos.
No kidding.
And no black.
Yeah.
Only with the delicate.
Delicate,
You know, this
yeah.
was my. We'll talk about this in another video, but this was my first good knife, which is why it's the saber grind.
Yeah, I was
instead of
gonna
the flat
say.
grind.
It's a bit older.
Yes,
So we'll start with old school Japan.
Higos.
The Higos.
Classic Higo versus the new iteration from Shun.
The second one I've owned, I don't remember the steel on this one, but the first one I had was actually super blue. Unfortunately, it was stolen, but
Bummer.
I replaced it.
White steel, maybe?
I
White
believe
steel, they
it's
use L6.
I believe it's
sometimes.
white 1 or blue 2.
Okay.
I don't remember which.
But I don't know if it's even made in Japan, to be honest with you.
And just a funny little tidbit on the note of the steel, as we were just referencing there as the white or the blue steel. The reasons why it's called white steel is because it comes from the factory wrapped in white paper.
Or blue paper.
Yes. And I just love that it's such a simple little thing as to why they named the steel white or blue steel.
And then they have the
Yes.
1, 2, and super in blue, and white 1 and 2.
Mhm.
I'm sure they have some others as well.
Mhm.
Oh, that is one crisp spine. You can fire strike that all day.
So, Japanese. We have a large assortment of VG10 blades here. VG10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10.
Nope.
Oh, Oz 8.
Oz 8.
Oz 8,
Oh.
okay.
10.
10.
And
For the core.
blue 2
Yeah.
probably.
So, yeah.
And then super blue.
I think it's 10 and
So-
1. I want to say.
For the layers?
It's got to be
Yeah.
10.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, no,
It's VG10.
I can see it right there. It says
And it
VG10.
says 416 or something.
DRS, DPS 15. No idea what that is. I'll have to look that up. Anyway. Seki City, Japan is where I think all of these are made.
Mhm.
Now,
Certainly the Spyderco's.
definitely, well, yes. The Spyderco's, but the Shun as well, I believe. And
I believe you're correct.
the Kusta, I
Yep.
think.
Yeah, I can see it right there.
And how about the Almar?
Almar is Seki,
So-
Japan as well.
Now, who's
So-
in Seki? Who's doing all this?
So here's the funny thing. Little history. Spyderco, 1976 started as a company. 1978 came up with Sharpmaker. 1981 contacted Almar because they wanted to produce their first pocket knife. So the reason that the Almar is sitting on the table tonight, the Eagle, Talon, Hawk, I don't know, this one's in the mid-80s. It's an oldie but a goodie.
It's a
Is
monster.
because Almar actually helped Sal Glasser and Gail Glasser produced their first knife, the Worker, the C01, in Seki, Japan, and it's somewhat said that it might have even been in Almar's factory that the first Spyderco knife was actually made.
That is
Bring
very
out
cool.
your horrible caricature of it to
For which?
Oh, that is.
point of
Oh,
comparison.
the gross prototype that we shall not speak, yeah.
Hey, man. This did a lot for me when I was growing up.
It didn't do a lot for you, did
Oh, it didn't become sharp.
From humble beginnings.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Japan, and the funny thing about the whole, like, Spyderco thing in particular, first knife came from Japan. Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. The first knife they ever made was not an American-made knife. And it's kind of funny that it didn't happen like that, and that it didn't actually happen until 1998. And in 98, Spyderco and Bob Truzola got together and wanted to make a new knife together, and Truzola was bitching because all of Spyderco's knives were ugly. And so Sal Glasser said, okay, well, make a knife that's not. And they came up with the Starmate, which I didn't realize was an original old 1998 version that was re-released, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago.
You know, that actually makes me want one, because up till now I have never wanted one.
The Starmate?
We'll throw the picture so that the
It's
others
a
can see.
weird knife that was way overpriced when it came back for BG10 for Japan. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But as far as what we got here, we're noticing trends like, well, obviously, lots of Spyderco coming out of Seki City. We've got Elmar, we've got Mkusta, we've got Shun. Big industry names. They've all got their hands in Japan. Japan's got a massive history as far as cutlery.
I was going to say, Seki City seems to be like the Japanese Sheffield or...
Like Toledo.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, or Toledo,
As
exactly.
far as folding knife goes,
Yes.
if you want to talk about kitchen knives, then it's Takefu Village.
Fair enough.
Which is funny, because there's a foundry in Takefu, I think, that produces VG10.
Yeah,
I bet
that's
it-
where Spyderco gets
Yeah.
their BG10 from.
So it's all...
Takefu has like the mass blacksmithing, not a commune, but like a
The central hub,
a community hub.
So as far as the quality coming out of Japan, most times people think that it's Japan is the way to go for the most part, but I'm going to call out the little Higo and then be a little controversial and call out the Inkusta as far as fit and finish quality goes. So my issues with the little Higos is because... What was that?
Said it's rubbing.
Well, that's not what I was actually about to say, but
Fair enough.
as part of it.
Let him get to it.
My main issue with the little Higos is with how they've just got the folded steel over. There's no stop pin in it, and a lot of the times the blade edge hits the inside of the liners and dulls off the blade on you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're totally correct about that. I handled about 5 of them before I found one that didn't.
Yeah.
Or at least it didn't badly.
So,
Yeah. It is a very common thing.
Knives like this, traditional locks, or traditional slip joints, will actually have something called a kick. These guys lack that. So that's what he's talking about by having a hard collision. And yes, you can get some of these to collide, but fair enough. And what about the Inkusta?
Mine's made of brass, though. So I don't know if that would have the
There's
same issue.
there's a very, very dramatic spread of materials used on
It
those.
still needs that kick like Joe was talking about. 'Cause
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
have their
the brass will be softer, but it still will eventually dull it off and have some effect on the edge for sure.
very prone to hitting the
Oh, yeah.
inside of the handle.
Now, it is a traditional design. I mean, it is an ancient traditional design. So
Also, in fairness, if you do want the traditional design, you can find these for about $20 Canadian with much challenge.
Yeah. And then my issue with the Mkusta is actually along the same lines. Is I've got little score marks along the back barrel spacer there from where the blade edge hits in because there's
Wow.
loose tolerances in there.
How long ago did you buy that Akusta?
4 years? 5 years?
Okay.
But
So I've seen some in the last year that were a lot less questionable for that.
yeah.
So maybe it's something that they've been working on.
Hopefully.
I'm not sure. I hope
Yeah.
so, yes.
I would certainly hope so, absolutely.
That's a good looking zip tie you got there.
You like that?
Now, we're also...
No, it's disgusting.
Let's talk about
That's
this.
the word.
Let's not talk about this disgusting monstrosity that you've done, and talk instead about the beautiful monstrosity. This
Yeah, talk about the actual qualities of country origin and stuff.
So if we're talking about how nicely some knives can be made, this Endura I think is a great example of some good quality control. Now you're working with much more expensive materials, so I mean there is that onboard incentive to do a better job. But that being said, again, if the effort is put into it, like with some Chinese knives, with Japanese knives, you can get some really nice stuff at the end of it. Traditional, I mean, like jig. What's this jig? Giraffe bone, I believe. Oh, that's.
Yeah, giraffe bone for that guy.
Yeah.
And now this has just become the Endura video of the channel.
For now.
Well, going with the good quality control and good stuff coming out of Japan, Spyderco is definitely up there for protection stuff.
Particularly this line.
Mhm.
I have never seen an Endura that isn't consistent or
Or
a Delica.
Delica.
My only issue.
You haven't, have you? Look at the centering on that knife.
It doesn't need to be tightened though. Does the pivot need to be reset?
I don't know,
Possibly.
Check it for blade play.
but I haven't looked at this knife up until then. Nope, absolutely no blade play, but that is
Fair enough.
far from a centered knife.
That being said,
Not to bash,
rubbing.
check
not
check-
to bash
check
a
the super
knife,
blue.
but
Hey, I don't think any of these are perfectly centered actually.
The good thing is it
The
doesn't
super
rub.
blue is perfectly centered. The purple leans to the left, and the gray leads slightly to the right.
Okay, how many of these have been disassembled?
This one has been disassembled.
So is the purple.
This one's never been disassembled.
Okay,
It's never
so
been used.
and again, this is what we're talking
no,
about. You
this
can
is-
get,
you bought this as a collector's piece.
Yeah.
But
but
yeah,
This is
I bought it as a collector's piece, and it was on sale, and it was basically the last one I could have got my hands on. So
This is as it came from the factory as well.
but we're talking about overall quality out of box. How did it come from the factory? I don't remember this being perfectly centered when I got it, but at the price level and what I was planning on using this for, a hard-use knife, I wasn't expecting perfection. I didn't need it. But that being said, out of Japan for roughly $100 for these guys, I believe that's where they're sitting roughly, 120 Canadian.
110 if you're looking on
Bring that
Amazon.
guy up here. I've got one of those as well, sans pocket clip, but
we missed the last but not least on Japan.
Absolutely. let's see the center. Yeah, center's perfect.
And then the little
yeah,
tilt
yeah.
there as well.
Was that
that thing's so ridiculous.
It's so
Very
ridiculous.
unique, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
Where's the? It just says Spyderco. It doesn't tell me the country of origin on it.
It is a Japanese made one though.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. I don't know. I mean, there's certain things that obviously there are tolerances in place. Like you can see the seam from the dirt that's been built up on the side of my spacer here. I think that might be a common issue with the. And again, issues. I say that term loosely
proud.
because it really doesn't matter at this price point. But it's the
And-
kind of thing where there are tolerances, and these
and
fall within them.
Something like that with the plastic could just be from the mold
From the
deteriorating.
flash.
And this is FRN,
Yeah.
not titanium.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, you have a give and take, but on by the by, yeah, you can get good Japanese knives still, and I don't think that was really ever up for debate.
No.
But I mean, where's your Imkusta? There are some misses in terms of quality control, and it's kind of funny because there's American
Just barely,
Spydercos. I don't have any in my collection, and this is part of why I don't have any American Spydercos because a number of them I have seen where they don't clean off the tube for the lanyard. It's basically the same. It almost looks like it's been bead blasted, or there's a strip of writing lasered onto it from the one that when it was just a tube.
And it's funny that you say that because the Starmate made in Japan, I saw exactly that thing. I forgot about that until you mentioned the rating on the tube.
But I've seen it on paramilitaries. I've seen it on the Starmates. I've seen it on. So it's weird. It's like sometimes these things just slip by. A process is missed, and that's part of what quality control is supposed to catch.
This one doesn't seem to have it.
No.
That one does not. No, this one's clean.
And it would
How's
be
the centering
very
on that?
obvious.
Perfect. No, slightly off, but very close.
But it's also been lucid to be actiony.
So, Japan, we got that.
Yep.
They're pretty fail-safe for the most part. Every
Yep.
once in a while you get it done, but it's kind of surprising
Yeah.
to see.
Pretty much it's safe to say that Japan gives good quality, and what could be considerably bad quality, it's still very, very nice.
Yes.
So yeah, pretty much any examples that we have coming out of Taiwan are all really, really nice. There's definitely, I'm not going to say bad quality, but in comparison to some others, it's lower quality.
Paragon aspiring.
And you got things like the Spyderco Nirvana that won Knife of the Year and things like that, like that are coming
It's
out of
pretty
Taiwan.
nice.
And everyone gets this
Yes.
whole overseas is bad, and for some reason
Mhm.
Japan gets excluded by that, but Taiwan gets thrown in with the China at the same time.
Which is crazy when you look at what's
And
out
even
there.
with some of the Chinese offerings that we've pulled out tonight, type of thing, it's absolutely crazy that people would actually think that it needs to be American made compared to what some of these companies are offering for overseas things, right? So, I mean, yeah, phenomenal offerings. Little irked, and with the Japanese one as well as that they resorted to peel ply carbon
Yeah.
fiber instead of actual carbon fiber.
Solid slabs.
But it's a small qualm. I don't
Yeah.
have
For a user knife, I don't find myself carrying for a collector's piece. It would bother me.
It looks so much prettier. It's,
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Well, if you're gonna give me sculpting like that, I'm gonna, yeah, definitely.
So does that lead us in? Well, we should dabble onto the one quick
Yeah.
little German.
This is I think this is the only German offering we have. I mean,
I believe so.
do we want to do Europe in one fell swing and include Italy in here?
Yeah, sure.
That's a smart idea.
I got this as a gift a couple years ago. I've used it as like a road trip, put it in my back pocket so it doesn't stab me while I'm driving sort of knife.
That's China, by the way.
the Blue Ridge is made in Italy.
For the D2 version?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nick Shabazz in one of his videos says that it's made in China, but
We're
looking
not
at the Blue
sponsored by
Ridge,
Nick Shabazz.
No.
Yet.
We'll stat check that, but I thought, the
I thought so
D2
too,
was-
but I looked up on their website and everything said Italian made on their website.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. That makes me change my opinion even more about that knife.
You already liked it.
I already did like it.
I
Yeah.
really do too.
And then there was supposed to be one more little knife that I forgot to bring along. We got lent out a little Spyderco Squeak as well
Yes.
for
we
an
did.
Italian version of something.
We didn't get the squeak in the video, but again, from Spyderco, because we were trying to highlight some Spydercos in different factories that they've been doing great stuff with, right? But
By and large, I suppose we could have grabbed it. Well, the other one that comes to mind really quickly, actually, is the Cold Steel Lucky one, or the Lucky in general.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of cute little guys coming out of Italy, and then there's also some beefier ones. Quality Manufacturers Control of the Year award for stealing it away from Chris freaking
Yep,
Reeves.
the only company that has.
yeah,
So I imagine that I don't think there's any real question that Italy's capable.
Quick point about Italy. I believe the original run of the arrows was done by an Italian company, I think Viper.
Okay.
Viper knives.
And they had some
cool.
major QC issues. Like
Huh.
the
Too bad.
bearing races were laminated.
Well,
Like with the,
no.
it was a gritty thing. I
Viper's
have
been
not
on
had
my
the
radar.
opportunity to
Yeah.
handle one. I've heard that their knives are good. I think it was just that they decided to cost cut. I'm not sure if it was a dialogue between the designer and maker,
Miscommunication.
or if it was just a
They
thing
tried to
that,
save
that someone said, okay, this is where we're saving this $50 or whatever the case was. But that's the only bad thing I've heard out of Italy recently, anyway.
And then we do have Puma, who's been around forever,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, multiple hundreds of the years. And they've been coming out with some great stuff, but they're, again, hit and miss. You got to be careful. The Boker Magnum stuff is something you probably want to stray away from for the most part. The Boker Plus is made in China, and it's actually hit and miss for some of the Boker stuff. And I have Boker Plus fixed blades, but I don't have any in the folders.
It's just sounds so nice.
And the Boker Soligen stuff, for the most part, pretty good, but I've heard some QC issues with even the Soligen factory sometimes.
To the credit of that one, I think that that's a very good example of a traditional style knife.
Mhm.
It has served me very well. I don't have any major complaints with it. The edge came real nice. It's held an edge relatively well. I've mostly done food, like picnic stuff with it, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Picnic and packages, that sort of thing.
We know what kind of steel it is.
I think it just says German stainless on it. German steel.
Probably, if you were to guess.
I'm not
4116.
for that-
Sure how well you'll be able to see that on the...
For that style of knife, I think it's appropriate.
100%.
But again, examples of good, examples of bad.
Yeah. Don't really have any examples of a bad, but I'm going to call out Spain, mostly just because of the tourism, or like combination Spain-Italy for the tourism aspect of the stilettos and the cheap mass-produced stilettos that they were pumping out during like the 60s to the 80s sort of thing.
And then Sheffield, England.
Mhm.
What used to be an absolute hotbed for actual knives and steels and things like that, and swords in particular. And now they're just known for fake antler-handled wedding cutters, and that's what Sheffield, England is known for, right? So, great presentation pieces, but as far as performing pieces,
Yeah.
it's tourist trap stuff.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate trend that popular cities get their name used by crappy companies to promote their products to make them seem better, and that just brings things downhill.
You throw the word Messer across something and say that it's German steel but still made in China, and guys will pay way too much money for a knife that's not worth it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think probably last but not least,
North
we got
America.
USA. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say North America.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get into that.
So we'll start off with the States.
They're coming out to play.
Finally have a green Osborne.
Yay!
Finally, a green Osborne. And if you're pulling out the big HK, I'm going to unpocket the mini HK and just put it on top because it's cute.
It is cute. So yeah,
Almost outdoing Japan here.
I think it's safe to
Easily.
say that we've got lots of well-made American products,
You got it.
and pretty much it seems like anything that is being made by American companies or anything like that that would be considered any of their lower stuff, they farmed out to China.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find bad American-made examples of knives.
I got gripes.
Oh well, there's gripes for sure. But as far
There's
as-
grapes.
Yes, but as far as setting something out and saying this is a bad example of American-made, there's things we can nitpick on, but I don't know if there's something that is a bad example.
Not with us, but I have bad examples of both Spyderco and ZT that I've personally seen myself. We don't have them in the collection. And one of the big things that I want to dabble on with the QC of American made is burned blades.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen paramilitaries, not the S-110, but I've seen S-30 paramilitaries with burned blades on the edges. And you could tell that they were burnt straight from the factory. Right when you open the box, there's a burn on that blade.
There was a relatively well-known issue with the Spyderco and Nalaka. Originally, when they shipped, they were all 0 ground spine to edge. They found that the edge holding was crap. But after sharpening them, there was good steel underneath. The working theory was that, well, a huge number of those knives were burnt on the edge, and then they bought them clean and
And the
shipped them out.
Nalaka's being a standy grind because of how thin it was behind the edge.
And on subsequent models, they actually shipped them with a micro bevel. Or sorry, not a micro bevel, but an actual proper bevel at the edge of the grind.
Yeah.
Which was more akin to what Spyderco does with their Endurance.
And I also saw 0 tolerance, and it was actually 0 tolerance fixed blades with burns on the blades. I saw 0 tolerance 170s that's straight out of the box when you open them up. That's a very obvious brown to yellowish burn going halfway up the bevel. So regardless of my Osborne not being centered, or the assisted wearing out over time, or the Omega Spring gripes that we have.
Not being centered and rubbing up against a scale and taking the finish off.
Yeah.
Or if you can see it, the comically uneven grind on that.
Well, yeah. But on top of things, you do have things like burnt blades that do affect performance at that point, right?
It's noticeable.
Yeah, it's noticeable is a good
there.
word for it.
So yeah, there are definitely lemons that come out of American factories, but they're not producing bad knives.
No.
Yeah, there's
Fair.
other nice knives
Fair.
that the quality control could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a consistent issue, which makes it a little bit vexing.
Mhm.
But I still have more confidence buying a Chris Reeve, a Kershaw, a Benchmade, a Spyderco from the States than I do an M-Tech or a TAC Force, those types of things.
Now, the other thing that's super funny about this conversation that we're having is American-made, and Kershaw in particular, and how many American-made Kershaws are not using American steel.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, older M390, ZDP 189.
The 1428 Savic
Yeah.
is not an American steel, right? Like,
Mhm.
so it needs to be American-made. Well,
How far
Parts
down
of
that
it.
line do you want to go? Is your hardware sourced from a machine
At
shop
the-
in your local state? Like,
at the end of the day, how American-made can your American-made knife say it actually is? Type of thing,
I know
right?
Spyderco got in trouble for that back in the day with their spider flies. They were getting them made overseas, bringing them into the States, assembling them, and claiming, I'm pretty sure they were claiming they were American made.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, in terms of sourcing to a psychotic extent.
Let's clear some of this off to make.
Oh, yeah.
For some
Absolutely.
You know what? The Spencer can stay up there.
So
All American made,
Who's
all
Spencer?
American sourced, and
one of the things.
John Grimsmo makes just about everything but the raw materials and the ceramic ball bearings are not.
So we mentioned earlier that this last segment was going to be North American. Canadian made.
And the
Oh,
nicest knife
Canada.
out here today.
Arguably the nicest knife on the market right now
Yeah.
when it comes to folders. Like, absolutely phenomenal.
Allow me to give it a quick wipe down just so you can see it glow.
it does glow.
It has the nicest drop blade I've ever played with in my life. Like,
Yeah, that glows nicely.
Yeah, it does.
So John and Eric Grimsmo,
They're killing it.
absolutely.
Let's be
Well,
honest.
no, in fairness, it's no longer just John and Eric Grimsmo. They have a team now.
there is employees now. And
But at the
Yeah,
time,
here,
this knife,
just do the one side versus the other for contrast of glow there.
that side there.
Yeah.
dull versus shiny.
Jeez.
And to
Like
be
you
fair,
can see
that is
the-
me
the
going
fingerprints.
out of my way to put fingerprints on it for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
just to make the contrast as stark as I could.
And again, the drop on it.
Oh.
Just and so Canadian made.
Mhm.
Regardless of all the other countries, we come across a country that's not even on the radar for knife making.
Like, who, besides a handful of really cool custom makers, we've
to be
got
fair,
Groman
though,
knives.
We should mention the fact that we're looking at a custom knife
Mhm.
versus.
I still
Well,
don't.
production
okay,
knives.
you
I
know
can't
what?
call this a custom. I'm sorry.
I've been thinking of this as a super knife.
Semi-customs.
This is
Yes.
the supercar equivalent of a knife. It isn't custom, but it's close.
I'm going to put it in the same category as Chris Reeves. They're
I'm going to put it in the
semi-customs.
same category as Chris Reeve 15 or 20 years ago. Because I think Chris Reeve has evolved to the point now where he's almost more of a production than he is a custom.
I would still argue that a plain Jane Sabenza is a production knife. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's all standard. It's all stamped out. Even with the inlays, the Cocobolo inlays, like they.
And that's why I argued 20 years ago, is because I think it was a much more
Yes.
hands-on experience 20 years ago
Now-
with the Sabenzas than they are now.
Now, from what I understand, he's starting to move, or at least John Grimsmo's company is starting to move in a direction of production as they're only producing what they want. You enter in a lottery to get maker's choice of
Yes.
materials, which is fine. I think that's perfectly fine. Knowing the quality that you get, like,
Still custom at that point. Even though
I
you're not
can't-
picking it yourself, it's still
See,
customized.
to me-
Oh yeah,
Completely
to be
by
clear,
that.
this is Rask 171. I got this on the pre-order. I think I got it towards the third quarter of the pre-order as production was actually ramping up in a real way, so I didn't have to wait the 2 years or however long it ended up being. But this is first production Rask run. This is not Maker's Choice. So I got the purple hardware, the brass, the starburst, everything.
You got
as
exactly what you wanted.
Exactly what I wanted. I
So-
think we can also arrange for pictures of the internals of this. I think we can movie magic some of that in.
so aside from being super nitpicky, there's nothing for me to complain about with either one of these knives. And I think this is starting to enter in that realm of your personal decisions. Like, I would have liked to have seen a sharpening choil, but it doesn't break the knife for me.
There's the one thing on this knife. Factory edge, unimpressive.
I'll
It's
do that.
just a solid, it could have been better.
Morgan let me play with this, and I did some cutting, and I did some like wood carving and stuff like that. And I'll actually admit that like the Chinese made booze blade with the
And that's still a factory edge.
Yeah.
I have not sharpened it up
Yeah.
just
yeah.
just for the sake of anticipating this.
and then you use your Chinese made.
It's still a little snaggy, but it's at least going in a lot easier.
You've had this a lot longer than that, though. no?
I've had it a lot longer, and I've been doing light use with it. It's not been a safe queen, but it's been
I did
a
get
little bit close.
protected.
It's like you and your anthem.
I was gonna say, I know that feeling.
I did get to play with this roughly, like 4 days after you got it.
Yeah.
Something like that. And at the time, yes, the edge wasn't crazy impressive, but it was serviceable. It wasn't as bad, obviously, as it is now. RWL 34, though, right? For the blade
Yes.
steel?
Message.
Yep.
Super glue from Japan.
Uh-huh.
It's a knife that once I get it out of my system, I'm going to have to reprofile it. It's going to have to be something other than what it is now.
Fair enough.
Actually, it's the same with Shirogorov. I have a neon light. It's not here right now. I temporarily traded it, loaned it out so that I could get this on the table for the video about Chinese-made knives. I'm sure it can make a guest appearance at some point. But unimpressive edge on that as well.
This almost makes up for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So I think
think it's safe to say that,
Location doesn't matter.
yeah, it's about the company and their quality control.
It seems to be like after a certain price point, you know what you're getting
And who's
Yeah.
across the board.
Oh, one quick point about how to do something right. You were saying about the lock bars. With this and the Rask, then lock bars on a flipper.
Gives you enough purchase room.
you bet. As a
outside
lefty,
of-
I
yeah.
can put my thumb
Yeah.
on there and not trap the detent.
In
And,
the
In
previous
comparison-
episode, you were talking about how to not do a
oh, I
flipper.
hate it. I hate it so much. It angers
This
me.
is relatively acceptable.
And they thin out that lock bar just enough that you can put your thumb there and still have a nice solid deployment,
Mhm.
regardless of whether
Yeah.
I like.
I
flippers
think
or
that's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
100%.
Is that
Absolutely.
not. And especially with the Rask too.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful placement on that.
Yep.
That
It's
lock up.
such a pretty
it's
knife.
Yeah.
the most comfortable knife I have ever had to open.
I'm gonna be honest with you. At the end of the day, a Norseman is probably the one and only Grail knife in my want to have one day.
It's a
There
worthy choice. Absolutely.
They're a weird looking knife, but I
Oh,
want
and goofy, but I love them.
one. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Of course you love them.
Well,
The weird
I-
Norseman
I mean,
something.
I don't have anything particularly weird.
Making me feel bad. That's okay.
I have
So-
some taste.
So yeah, as we're in the middle of trying to close out there.
I think we should
We
try to
get off
close
onto
out
a whole
this
different
segment.
rant.
Yeah, ultimately, country doesn't matter. Chinese made is a thing of the past. I didn't get to gripe too much about Chinese price points. We'll gripe on that another day, I think, probably. But
And that's kind of leaning more into the political side of things, and we were just looking at the
It's
products.
beyond the scope of
Quality.
this.
the
Yeah.
quality itself, you know what you're getting when you look at all of these companies. And the quality control for the
This thing is
longest
just so
time
pretty.
from different companies.
You certainly do know the sort of quality you get when you're looking at these knives, all right?
Yeah. And you got to remember that when you're buying something like that, it's
It's a
Please
mixed
don't buy
bag.
something like that.
Please don't.
But come on, man, it's got skulls. That means it's cool. And it's got steel for the blade. Come on, steel.
So as we're trying to wrap this up here,
Third time's the charm.
all right. Let's sign off here, guys. Buy what you like as long as you think the quality control is good. The manufacturer has a good warranty that's willing to back it up.
yeah,
Who cares what it says across the side of the blade? It's how it performs.
indeed it is.
100%.
That being said, this is Nigel the Smith signing off.
I am who I am. I'm Dennis Vipers.
I'm at Stenoa. I'm Morgan.
I am the Iron Joe.
And I'm on xl.ca.
Take care, everyone.
We don't need